second. Soul Sisters, a discourse on the woman on Smooth 98.1. Okay. Yes, the time is right for Soul Sisters here on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life, and we love your input as well as your feedback and your comments. We love your participation. So please do not withhold that from us. As always, at any point of the show, you can be a part of the show itself. So be it on Twitter, on Instagram, on WhatsApp, via YouTube, on the call line, you can be a part of it anywhere. So I'll just tell you quickly, or maybe I'll hold off on that and just give you a quick intro into the show for today. If you're new to us, well, you're listening to Smooth 98.1. We are the smoothest dial on Lagos radio, and you better not try to argue it. If not, you need to listen to our songs and all the programs we have lined up for you. Right now, you are tuned into the show called Soul Sisters. As it implies, it's for the sisters and the brothers who care about the sisters. So please, men, do not change the dial or tune out. We have something for you. So, like I mentioned, we talk and deal with issues relating to the women. And also, we like the men to be a part of the conversation, especially when it is not only limited to the women. Something like today, we're talking about the trying to conceive journey, also called the TTC journey. You can call it the fertility journey. And I tell you, it is quite intense. It is one that has broken a lot of homes. It is one that have turned a lot of people insane, not willingly, but it just messes with your mind. And we will like you to be a part of it, like I mentioned. So right now we are streaming on YouTube. It is youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. So go there, subscribe. You can drop your comment in the chat option. You can also drop it on WhatsApp. It is 0809 444 0981. I have a gorgeous lady as my guest this morning, and she's radiating elegantly in the studio. You can see that for yourself on YouTube. Her name is Loretta Olubunmi-Amosu. I hope I got the pronunciation right.
You sure did.
And she is more than a glowing woman. She is a human resources generalist with a passion for service and humanitarian endeavors. Truth is, I'll just give you a little bit, an abridged version of her profile, because if I start reeling out what she has done, we might not start until 5 minutes later. She currently runs a not-for-profit organization that is known as View Inspired Foundation that caters to the needs of internally displaced persons in the northern region of Nigeria. And she is one who is so passionate about putting smiles on people's faces and having their answers, the heartfelt desires of their heart answered. We will get to that later on, which is why you should stay tuned for this conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome the author of Oma's Seed, Loretta Olubunmi-Amosu. Good morning again.
Hi, Oluwaseun. Hi. So good to be here.
You are the definition of soft spoken.
I will try.
But it's beautiful. It's lovely to have you here, and I'm excited about the conversation. I am excited about the education and the enlightenment many people will have, and hopefully, they do not return to the ignorance.
Hopefully.
Because
Hopefully.
one thing I have found out is sometimes, even when we're being shown the light through knowledge, it's like we stay so long in ignorance that we don't see knowledge as another option, and it's what we have been familiar with. So we just tend to slip back into that pit of ignorance. So please, if you are not sure of whatever it is that you've heard today, you can call. That's why we open the phone line and also the WhatsApp line. If you do not fully agree, it's better to just ask questions, and maybe we could help you understand the topic better. The fertility journey, the trying to conceive journey. And one thing I'm really looking forward to is the part where I ask you the do's and don'ts of of what to say, what not to say, how to be towards someone who's trying to have a baby. But first, let me get started. How are you doing?
Ooh, I'm good. I'm a bit jittery because I have a hate-love relationship for radio.
Why is that?
Yeah, but you make it so easy. So let's see how good and how well this goes.
First off, I want to start with, because there's no how we're going to talk about this without talking about your book.
Sure.
Why did you even decide to put this whole thing down?
Where do I even start from? Okay, so while I was working the journey, trying to have a baby, I found that reading material from people who had walked the path before me helped me a lot.
Mm.
A friend of mine who manages a bookstore started to send me different things to read. So I came in contact with books written by a few people in Nigeria, a few people abroad. And whilst many of them didn't particularly end the way we would like, um, just reading and knowing that other people could relate with what I had been through or what I was going through at the time was a lot of comfort for me. And at that point, it started to enlighten me. I started to realize that this particular thing that I wanted, I could get through other means.
Mm.
So when people hear about a couple waiting for a child, they just think, oh, it has to come from their body. A lot of people don't consider the route of adoption. A lot of people hear about assisted reproduction and they're like, oh, maybe it's for the rich and the elite, and they don't know that there are opportunities for people who are not so buoyant. I mean, I know that there are some foundations that actually help with this. And of course, people hear about going to prophets and pastors and all of that, and that is a whole different ball game entirely. That would probably take the whole day if we want to talk about it. So, yeah, I was enlightened, and I thought that it would help provide comfort to other people if they could relate with the things that I also was going through after I had my miracle come through.
Mm. That's good. Thank you. You know how it is said that if you're looking for something in a book, or if you're looking for a book, you should write it if you can't find the book.
Exactly.
And it's also beautiful when you have gone, you have been, if I say the word blessed, or you have been helped by some book. It's
Mm-hmm.
just fair enough that you give back through a
Exactly.
book.
Exactly.
That's lovely. So I dug up some data. I'm a fan of data, and in the course of this conversation, I'll reel out some. But here is one. When you're looking at fertility rates across the world, in Europe, UK, and all of that, you tend to see declining fertility rate. But here in Africa, it's not so much.
Mm-hmm.
However, it turns out that fertility rate is actually gradually declining in Nigeria. And according to the global fertility rate, it says that 2.4 children per woman. However, in according to the data in April 2021, it says the fertility rate was 4.67. Now, that was down from 5.3 in
Mm-hmm.
2019.
Okay.
And then in 2017, it was 6.2.
Mm-hmm.
So gradually it is declining. And it begs the question, you have been through this whole journey. You met some people who were in this situation. How would you say the general knowledge towards um, fertility is in Nigeria?
At the moment, I would say a lot of people are more enlightened, more aware, compared to, I mean, 10 years ago when I just got married and way back. So let's start from the 90s. Um, Anyone who was experiencing infertility would literally just have to wait on God or hope for a miracle or something, or whatever means they're aware of. Those who know the traditional means would go the traditional route for the womb massages and all of those things, or taking concoctions. And then after a while, we started to hear about test tube babies, and it seemed like it was some crazy thing. But that was the introduction of IVF, like assisted reproduction, coming to Nigeria. And of course, there was a lot of pushback. But with enlightenment and seeing success stories and meeting with people who have actually come out of this and have children, some multiples, twins, triplets, and all of that, people are beginning to open up to it a lot more. And with time, like I mentioned earlier, some foundations are also setting up, like charity organizations are setting up donations and stuff like that, funds set aside to help people who are not able to manage the resources. I mean, to go down the fertility route, and things are beginning to open up. Churches are accepting it more. Like before, when it was a taboo, if you go to a pastor and told the pastor that you were going down the medical fertility route, and they'll be like, your faith in God is not exactly very strong. Where are you coming from, and all of that. And I think both in the Christian and the Muslim world that I'm aware of, because I walk the journey alongside some other people who are also Muslims. I'm Christian, and I know that they equally share the same thing. So people are just becoming a bit more enlightened about it. The religious angle is becoming a bit more accepting because we're largely religious in this part of the country. And the success stories are making it something that a lot of people can actually relate with. I mean, who doesn't want to have a child at the end of the day if that's what they so desire? So I guess the end justifies the means for some of them.
Mm. Thank you very much. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll get started with how the pressure starts. how, we have womb watchers out there. But then I think I would like to make a reference to one of the things you said in the book, how the pressure actually started with you.
Yes.
And unintentionally, there are times we care, we say some certain prayers that are putting ideas in the mind and unnecessarily building
By this
pressures.
time next year.
You know, and even if you have one child, they start to pray, oh, you'll have more. And I'm like, what is going on? So we will get started when we come back from the break on the pressure. Where does the pressure come from? And where is, or what is your own part? You're listening to Soul Sisters here on Smooth 98.1.
Music.
This is Mr. C, and you're listening to Smooth 98.1 for music and more.
Babe, babe, I got it! I got it!
Calm down. What did you get?
I got the job! And guess what? The salary is even more than we thought! Now I can take you to all those fancy places you've always wanted to go. I'm thinking we start with Dubai this summer.
Wow! I would love that. But, darling, wait till. I hope this your new job gives you an AXA health cover, just as you have on your current job.
Sure thing! That would definitely have been the deal breaker. That comprehensive health cover from AXA Mansard is second to none. Very important indeed.
I trust you, darling.
I trust AXA Mansard HMO.
Sign up now to the AXA Mansard HMO cover to enjoy access to over 1,500 health providers, hospitals, dentists, eye clinics, and so on nationwide. Telemedicine services, laboratory home service, fitness services, and much more. Simply dial 0700 AXA Mansard to get started. AXA, know you can.
How far will she go for power in a world where secrets, ambition, and betrayal thrive? How fearless will she get in her quest to become a gold mogul? For Wura, she will cut corners. She will do whatever it takes.
Get ready for Showmax's first Nigerian original telenovela, Wura, coming January 23rd, only on Showmax. Subscribe from 1,200 Naira monthly. Sign up now at showmax.com.
It's time to enjoy fast and reliable internet connection for less.
It's time to go
Is that
big
okay
in
for
the
you?
Airtel Home Broadband
Or you want,
all-time
okay,
mega
I was
offer.
asking
It's
if
time
it's
to take advantage in the Airtel Home Broadband all-time mega offer. Get a MiFi with up to 125 gigabyte bonus data for just 5,000 Naira. Or router with up to 240 gigabyte bonus data for just 10,000 Naira. Visit any Airtel shop or www.airtel.com.ng/HBB now.
Airtel, the smartphone network. Funky Fly, silky smooth.
You're listening to Soul Sisters here on Smooth 98.1, where we love music, we love life, we love you and your opinions. It's fine. Even if we don't necessarily agree with them, it's okay. That's why we have this medium. And you can be a part of it in several ways. WhatsApp, and you can call, you can be a part of it on YouTube and also Twitter. Twitter is at Smooth981FM. That's the handle, but make sure to use the hashtag Soul Sisters 981. You can come to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. And then you can come on YouTube, youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. Before I even go back to asking the question where I said I was going to start with, oh, by the way, my guest is Loretta Olubunmi-Amosu, and she is the author of Oluwaseun. Now, I think I'm interested in taking this question. Maybe you can say one or two things to it. Ikedia from Ikeja says, I am not apportioning blame to anyone, but the declining fertility rate could be because of the career or empowered woman. Science tells us that the environment determines our being. Maybe if women remain feminine and stop trying to compete with men, their internal machinery will function the way a woman's body is supposed to function. I'm not sure what that means, Ikedia. Do you know what that means?
No idea.
Thank you very much. We'll move on. Okay, so by the way, you can still send your messages though. 0809 444 0981. That's the WhatsApp line. We take all messages, even if we might not necessarily have an answer to it. Okay, so back to it. Here, I'll read out this part from your book. You said, I was my first pressure point, followed by one of my dearest sisters, and it was out of love because she wants the best for me. Unfortunately, sometimes the expression of that love left me feeling extremely weary and desperate to end my situation. We cannot rule out the fact that there are people who get pressured into the whole trying to seek out different ways to end the infertility situation. And by the way, I think it's important for us to note that you cannot declare yourself infertile until you have actively tried for 1 year. And when I say actively, fully actively tried for 1 whole year. After that, then you can begin to seek out help and medical options. So there are some cases that friends just drop comments, make innuendos here and there. There are some goodwills and wishes, and they say, oh, by this time next year you start to carry. If I write there while you're getting married, by this time next year you carry your baby.
Yeah.
And unknowingly we start to heap pressure on the woman. There were the ones who come to your wedding to give you a gift, and they give you baby clothes and things relating to baby. There are the ones who, when they see you adding weight, or they see a little protrusion in your tummy,
They start to thank God.
you know. But you know, again, how we say the water in the ocean is not what sinks the ship. It's the one
that gets in.
But in a situation where the woman is actually looking for a baby, is it really true that it's not the water within or without, but the one within?
It's everything. It's all the pressure combined, right? So while the water without is making the ship rock, there's a way the ship can rock, and some of the water will get in if there's no hole in it, depending on the intensity of the waves, right? So that's one thing. And of course, there's the one where there's actually a hole in the ship and then the water comes in. So it all depends on the situation. Like, you've heard of people who had such turbulent in-laws and relationships with their in-laws that it literally ended the marriage. I'm not sure that at the point when they started the fertility journey and realized that they had issues, they wanted to end the marriage. But sometimes all of the pressure just comes and it's so intense and it begins to affect the relationship between the couple, and it just makes everything go crazy. You might try to guard your heart like most of the people who are walking the journey would do, but there's only so much you can take. And if you don't have a fallback option, if you don't have someone to talk to, if you don't have an outlet, to just let go of some of these emotions, there's no way you can actually withstand the pressure.
How, in your case, tell me, walk us through how it was for you.
Okay, now you're gonna get me a bit emotional again, but that's fine.
I'm sorry.
I mean, that's why I'm here, right? So we started, and the first year we were like, "Oh, let's have fun." We went on our honeymoon, had fun, had all the whatever we wanted, and all of that. And we're like, okay, for year one, let's just have fun, nothing. And year two, maybe we will start. But along the journey, or along the line, sorry, in year one, we realized that we weren't using any contraceptives, we weren't using any protection, and nothing was happening. Like, I hadn't even missed a period. I'd never been pregnant in my life. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that the first thing would usually be a missed period. And nothing was going on. And then towards the seventh month, okay, we started to question, is everything okay? Then I spoke with a friend of mine of blessed memory. She's late now, doctor. I saw her and told her what was going on. And she said, okay, just wait it out. You're not even 30 yet, but you're approaching 30. So let's just wait it out and see what goes on. And then after that, you can come in. I'll fix you up with an OBGYN, and then we'll see how it goes from there. And in a few months, we were back then. What we were hoping for hadn't come. And then the test started to go from one to the other. You would have the HSG1, which is like, it's from hell, literally. So it's very painful. A few people have said it wasn't as intense or as painful for them, and I don't know what their pain threshold is like, but for me it was crazy. And then from there, you run the different scans. Sometimes you have to do an MRI or something just to be sure of what it is that's going on there, aside the blood work and everything. And we were just getting one negative report after the other. Eventually, IVF was the only way out, so we went in. And we thought that it would be a walk in the park. Like, I'm still young, maybe 30 or my early 30s. I can't remember exactly how old I was. But then I wasn't responding to treatment. And then they now started to query a lot of other medical diagnoses. Then endometriosis comes in. Then along the line, you start to hear of things like endometrial hyperplasia, where you're producing a lot of estrogen and it could lead to cancer, or it could lead to this. And you're like, all because I want a child. Like, this is something that people don't even know when it happens to them. Why is my case so different? So whilst you're trying to deal with the internal turmoil and all the medical diagnoses that, for me in particular, that I was getting, and then people are praying for you subtly. So I wouldn't consider that pressure, because I have seen what it is like for some other people, and for me, it was literally nothing. But the prayers may be from a good place, but just because at that point I'm not in my best space, head-wise, it doesn't come off so well for me. And then people are watching and they're like, okay, today your tummy is protruding. What's going in there? Some of it as a joke, but they don't understand what you're going through, and the well-intended joke will come off wrongly. So all of these things now start to add up eventually for you. And for me, I really wanted the situation to end. I really wanted to have a child. And whatever it was going to take, I was willing to do it. But unfortunately, the more we tried, the more the medical prognosis started to come up. It was one thing after the other until eventually it became evident to everybody that it wasn't going to happen the way you would expect, because I wanted to carry the pregnancy. I wanted to experience what it was like to be pregnant for once in my life, and it wasn't happening. And then enters the case of, how about a surrogate? And then we tried. The first attempt wasn't the best. It didn't, the surrogate got pregnant initially, and after a while she lost it. And then the second one worked well. And thanks to COVID, a lot of people didn't know about it at the time. They just heard all of a sudden that Loretta has a baby. They're like, from where to where? Yeah, so it's a very emotional journey. What you don't expect suddenly comes upon you, and depending on how far you're able to take it, and if you have the funds to go all the way, somehow it ends up well. But not everybody who has the funds eventually has a child, because I've heard of people who've had this medical interventions for as many as 12 times, 15 times, and they're still searching. What do you do? So it's a very tricky one.
Yes, it is. I have two questions to ask as a result of that explanation. The first one I will start with is, what are some of those things you feel shouldn't be said, using your case as a well, your case study? Those things you feel, yes, I understand you have the good intentions, you want the best for me, but you should try not to do this, or try not to say this, or try not to act this way to someone who's trying to have a baby actively.
First off, I would say, excuse me, please, I would say if they haven't ever come to you for advice or talk to you about their medical condition, maybe you should keep your comments to yourself. Maybe. Sometimes it's good to ask, but the way you approach it is what matters. But sometimes if they've not come to you at all, maybe you should just keep your comments to yourself. Or when you're having dreams, like a lot of people have dreams, I dreamt that so and so. You would weigh the relationship you have with the person and weigh the mood in the room and see what the person is going through. Or maybe not even have a face-to-face conversation, or send a message or something a bit more subtle. But sometimes it's usually in the delivery, and the delivery just takes away the intention and it makes it really funny. But I would advise anyone, if someone hasn't spoken to you about their medical journey, maybe you should just keep your comments to yourself. That's number one. Second, the one that comes from the elderly people in our families, and there's really not much you can do about it because we're Africans. Family is key. When they see you and they're like, by this time next year, what do? You just kneel down and say Eshima, Eshima, or thank you, or whatever it is that you can say at that point. But when I become elderly, I know that I would not do that if I ever encountered someone, because sometimes it led me to crying, and I'll cry and cry because the next year eventually came and nothing happened. Yeah.
Thank you very much. If you're joining us for the first time, we are talking about the trying to conceive journey. Well, the fertility journey, if you want to call it that way. We would like your comments and feedback. If you have anything to say, or if you're learning, that's fine too. You can drop a comment on WhatsApp or on YouTube. WhatsApp is 0809-444-0981. WhatsApp, that's WhatsApp. And then YouTube is youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. We'll take another break. How time flies by when you're having meaningful conversations. And when we come back, I think I'll hold off on the second question. And the one I would like to ask when we come back from the break is, when women don't get to have baby as at when they wish to, do you think it's the women that somehow put it on themselves that I am the cause? Or they have this reason, they feel like I need to explain that, well, I'm the reason or I'm not. And this one comes from when Uma was talking about resenting her husband because she felt, well, I'm not the one, at least I still have one tube that is not blocked, and it's the sperm motility of the man. So do you think that that feeling of inadequacy is self-inflicted by the woman? So we'll come back to that question afterwards.
Okay.
So you have an idea of what we're talking about. Just stay put. Do not even think of changing the dial because we'll be right back after this.
Your first question, was it declining fertility rate or declining infertility rate?
Fertility rates, yeah.
So I can answer that one.
If you're an employer
No, it
or a
was just
business owner,
when I
don't
started.
miss out
Yeah,
on this.
I think you
can
touched
now
on what I
advertise
wanted
your
you to
job
touch on.
vacancies
Yeah.
on
So what
Jobberman for
I
free.
answered was
That's
declining
right. There is no
infertility
limit
rate.
to the number of job
Oh,
openings you can advertise.
okay. So maybe I heard through what I wanted to hear then.
Get access to a pool of over 2.8 million candidates.
It's
and
just
an
this question
applicant
I'm
tracking
looking at. I'm
system
like,
that allows you to
just
filter and
comment.
shortlist
I
candidates
deliberately
with
held off my
ease,
thoughts
all
on it.
at zero cost. Visit www.jobberman.com/employer.
Although there are some truths to it though, that one of the reasons we have declining fertility rate, or if you call it declining number of birth rates, more women are being more career conscious, that's certain, and they are holding off. They have more education. They are not giving birth to as many children as possible. There is that, which is understandable. But the other part was totally unnecessary.
Get show arrangement already. Atiku na man with sabiti. Him sabi how to grow business. Him con sabi how to create job boku. Atiku Abubakar sabi Nigeria. Sabi our people con sabi the work join. Atiku for sure. PDP!
Now, PDP Presidential Campaign Council sponsor this message.
It's time to enjoy fast and reliable internet connection for less.
It's time to go big in the Airtel Home Broadband all-time mega offer.
It's time to take advantage in the Airtel Home Broadband all-time mega offer. Get a MiFi with up to 125 gigabyte bonus data for just 5,000 naira, or a router with up to 240 gigabyte bonus data for just 10,000 naira. Visit any Airtel shop or www.airtel.com.ng/HBB now.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Smooth 98.1. Absolutely no one does it better.
Love music, love life.
Well, tell us someone who does it better and we will wait. This is Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. You're listening to Soul Sisters here on Smooth 98.1. My name is Oluwaseun. My guest is Loretta Olubunmi-Amosu. We are talking about the trying to conceive journey. And you can join us on YouTube or you can join us on WhatsApp. YouTube is youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Without wasting much time. So back to that question. Why do you think women feel they need to put the whole burden on themselves, that they're the reason why there is maybe infertility in the family or inability to conceive?
So I would say that a lot of it has to do with society. It's almost as though society conditions the woman. Now, speaking of Africa, where we are, it's almost as though society conditions the woman to carry on a whole lot in the marriage. And this even extends to having children and all of that. And then from time immemorial, if a woman wasn't conceiving, it was just naturally her blame. Men had so much ego, or it just felt like it was impossible for a man to be able to have sex and probably emit and not be able to father a child. It's the introduction of medicine that now shows that some of the sperm is actually not sperm, it's really just water. You understand that? So I think that society first off conditions the woman's mind to believe that when all of this is happening, it's probably her fault. And that's why the first person who would typically go for a medical intervention is usually the woman. Men are not very they're not very open to it. You know what it takes for a man to admit to the fact that he's the one who's the cause behind them not having a child again. So, and then I don't know, some women just like to carry the cross, like literally, why? No one has told you that. Well, maybe it's from a place of not knowing any better, really, but no one has actually ruled out the fact that it is you get. And then sometimes for those who are not so enlightened, who go the traditional route, because you already have um, um, there's the case study that shows that most African women have fibroids, right? So in the case of the womb massage, for instance, the woman goes for traditional help, maybe to the Ijaw people who are very well known for this. And then they touch her womb or her stomach and they find a fibroid there, or they feel a little bit of bump. It might be something small. It might not even be affecting her ovaries or the uterus or anything. It might just be there in a place that's not affecting anything. And they're like, oh, now the fibroid, though. You are the reason, you get. So I don't know. It's a whole lot of societal pressure, first off. And then for some reason, women are just trying to be martyrs. I think we need to stop this martyr mindset that everything has to be on us. Let's actually seek the root of the problem. Let's find a way about it. And there are options, there are solutions. And together with our husbands, we would always find a way, especially if the men are willing. That's another thing.
True, that's another thing. I was going to ask a random question about that. Do you think it's one of the reasons why we seem to have a rising cases of paternity fraud? Because the woman suddenly feels like, okay, I want to protect him. I don't want to bash his ego. I don't want him to know that he's the reason why we do not have children. So she goes out trying to save the situation, not knowing she's destroying things.
I don't know about that, to be honest, because I think most of the time it's in the attempt to save face. As opposed to actually, because if you're looking out for the guy, you will find out that eventually he might get to know that these children are not his. Do you understand? And if you're coming up with paternal fraud, it means that you didn't do IVF most of the time. You had an affair with someone. What were you thinking? It takes a whole lot for a woman to, you know, succumb to having an affair with another man if there are no emotions involved. So sometimes I think it's from a place of trying to save face. I understand it's a whole lot of pressure, you know, especially when the in-laws are there and asking every time what's going on or the marriage is threatened. And sometimes there's no way out, there's nowhere to go back to. So maybe if the marriage doesn't work because there's no child, you can't go back to your father's house. What if there's no father or sibling, or maybe the condition of life that is not as good as what you're enjoying? So you're trying to protect your territory, you're trying to save face. But if you really want to look deep, like, is the intention really worth it? You know, what happens at the end of the day? When the man gets to find out that the children are not his, you're probably going to lose everything.
Speaking of pressure, desperation, and going back to that womb massage, when I was reading the book Oma Said, I was livid at some point when Oma went for a womb massage. And I'm thinking, Oma is supposed to be enlightened. Oma is supposed to be educated. Oma is supposed to be, well, to an extent, traveled and exposed. Why in the world will she subject herself to such? Why would you pay so much? I was angry when she had to pay so many seeds and she had to buy specific things, submit her first salary. What? So
let me throw it back at you.
Okay.
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you, with the benefit of hindsight, look back on some of the things you did and you were like,
I would never have done that. Of course,
was
I
it
have
jazz?
been. I have been.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
But do you think it all goes back to desperation and the pressure? Where is the place of drawing the line with this religious exploitation? Do you think it can be censored? I know right now we're having more expository pieces and even investigative journalism on cryptic pregnancy, which next week we will talk about cryptic pregnancy. I'll be joined by a medical professional. But do you think there is anything anyone can do to probably help the woman and understand and open her eyes to how these things are just pure exploitation?
You know how deep-rooted religion is. Where do you want to start from? It's a mindset. Sometimes it's a deep-rooted belief system. For those of us who were literally raised in religious houses, and this is all that we know, and you've come to put a face or have a relationship with some of these religious leaders who are telling you certain things along the line and telling you prophecies or stuff like that, because of the indoctrination and for lack of knowing better, you take it hook, line, and sinker. Religion and intellect, there's a
parallel.
Wide, exactly, they're very parallel. There's a wide gap there. So where do you want to start from?
Yeah, I understand. I agree. I was just hoping that there will be some sort of regulation later on. I don't know if the government or anyone or people around the people who are searching for children or who want children. In the case of Omar, I think that's true. I don't recall it. How did she get out of the whole hold of religion and being exploited?
She could see clearly now. maybe
How
when
did she
her
break
bank,
free?
maybe when her bank account was beginning to feel a lot of the pressure, she realized that this wasn't making sense, and maybe she just woke up one day and she was like, "No, I've actually had enough." It could be any of those.
So you think even if a partner, your family and friends, they really can't help you break free from that hold,
Do they
except you
always
yourself?
know these things? How much of it are you telling people? The book tells you that Oma didn't really share some of these things with her
Yeah.
husband. He didn't know some of the things that she was doing. So it depends on how much they're privy to what you actually say. Because sometimes people go to see these people and no one else knows about it. It's only when there's trouble or something is going off, going south, that you then open up and you're seeking advice. And sometimes by then it's already too late.
Mm. Let me take you back to that question I said I was going to ask earlier, and it is on surrogacy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think the attitude and the perception generally is towards surrogacy in Nigeria?
Right now, I think it's becoming a bit more accepted. It's becoming a bit more accepted. But for the couple who's walking the journey, sometimes they just want to keep it a bit hushed because they feel like the child needs to be protected. And even the medical exam and the medical personnel will tell you that the child needs to be protected because whilst some people who are a bit more woke are accepting of it, there are still people who, for instance, would look down on a woman who had a child for CS and say, you don't even have the strength to push a child, so just get out, like you're less of a woman or something. So imagine how the thought process is like, really. But by and large, I think it's becoming a bit more accepted, especially when these children are growing up and they're a spitting image of either father or mother, and they're like, okay, now they're picking, just another person born again. But there are different routes to it. So what happens when there's a donor egg or a donor sperm? Then the question becomes a bit more.
That's fair enough. But when Oma was trying to seek surrogacy, do you think that there were some other side effects she considered that probably would have made her develop cold feet? I mean, for instance, what if the surrogate turns around one day and say, I carried this baby for 9 months, that's my child?
No. So with that, there's a legal angle. So for you to go through the surrogacy thing, you have to sign a legal agreement. And I've come to find out that in Nigeria, you using a surrogate, you really do not need to use the surrogate's eggs because that's when the issues start to come up. Yeah. But if you're using your own eggs, your husband's sperm, and the surrogate is just a gestational carrier, so you're literally renting her womb for the period of time. Hopefully, the people who were able to scout the surrogate knows them to their home addresses and are able to keep tabs on them, monitor and everything. And after a while, like in our case, you even make payments for them to get the surrogate out of her environment so that the pressure she starts to feel from people who know that she's pregnant and then eventually see her without a baby after the baby's supposed to have dropped is not so much that it makes them want to do something funny. So you have to remove them from the environment and take them to a place where they're a bit more confined and they're able to just focus on carrying the child for you. But all of these risks exist, I mean, and you would want to liken it to you being the one carrying the child and God forbid maybe there's a miscarriage or something. So there's no guarantee as such until the child is literally dropped.
Thank you very much. And I'm glad for a number of reasons. Here is Acadia coming back saying, I've really learned a lot today. Your story was really touching. Now I feel like a jerk. But in my defense, I thought the guest was a consultant. I didn't know she was directly affected. Remind me how many years you had to wait again?
8 years. To be specific, 8 years, 3 months, 2 weeks.
I was waiting for the days.
Yeah.
So yes, now you know better, Ikedia. She actually went through that, and that's where the book Oma Seed came from. You can actually get it online. You can search for it, Oma Seed. It is spelled as OME''S, then SEED. So this is her story, and that's why we're talking about this, not just someone on the outside. But next week we will talk about cryptic pregnancy, and I think it's something that we need to break down because a lot of people have been exploited. Not just that, these people almost never remain the same mentally. And then internally, their organs, you have people who have enlarged liver because something needs to be tweaked in her for her tummy to be protruding and for her to be having those pregnancy symptoms. So we'll come back and wrap up after this break, and you can keep sending your messages actually to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. And please, Ikedia, do not feel like a jerk. It's okay. You know better now. Go in peace. Your sins are forgiven. This is Soul Sisters here on Smooth 98.1.
Let us see. And you're on Nigeria's #1 station for soul, jazz, and funk.
Really?
Smooth
Because that's part of
98.1.
my
Love
maiden name.
music, love life.
My maiden name
Hi,
is Akidia.
my name is Dr. Tunji
Really?
Bakari. I've been a medical doctor for over 20 years. And sometimes I have to recommend my patients leave the country to
Well, I
get
do know
urgent
him
care.
for
But
from
with 5G,
he's been a
I don't
regular
need my patients to
listener,
spend
so
enormous
just
amounts of money
maybe.
to fly out.
But
I can consult real
anything
time
is
with experts
possible.
all over the world without needing to get a
I
visa.
think the issue of
Even
infertility
monitoring
has been
patients with heart conditions or
regular.
patients that are at risk of
Yeah.
other ailments alone at home can be done with the wearable technology 5G facilitates. Even
Yeah,
though
and I
I'm a
think it's
doctor,
one thing we
I
need
keep
to
having to
hammer on when
convince
we
my
come back, even
patients
though the time's
this is
limited. It's
real,
not about
not
having
magic.
babies.
Bridge the gap with MTN 5G. It offers hyper-fast internet speeds, seamless buffering, and applications that can only be possible via its quality data
There's
capabilities.
an
No
argument
be
on,
juju.
on
Now
that from the
MTN
religious
5G,
angle as well.
now available on
That
iPhone.
You know, there's
MTN,
scripture
what are
that
we
says,
doing
do we
today?
have time?
just a minute.
Okay.
They
So
are
there's scripture that
giants in
says,
every sense
what's
of
the
the
essence
word,
of marriage?
and they
Is it
bring
not so that you can
entertainment
bring up
that's
godly seed
just
and
as
teach them
big.
in my ways? So
Don't miss the first ever season of
And
Big Brother Titans with Niger and Mzansi contestants under one roof. Get ready
it's
for
50-50.
intense drama,
An evil man
romance,
is
and
probably not getting
cameras
married.
24/7.
An evil
It's
man
an
is getting
unmissable
married.
season. Big Brother Titans starts on Sunday, the
and
15th
that's
of
why we might not
January
be
on
able to correct
DSTV
the mentality
198,
that marriage is not
GoTV
ultimately about
29,
having
and
children, because
Africa
it
Magic.
depends on the
Get and stay
platform on which you
connected to
got married. If
DSTV
you got
and
married because you want
GoTV
people
for
to
the
continue your
biggest
legacy,
takeover.
carry on your
Big
name,
Brother
it's going to be
Titans
hard
is
to
rated 18.
convince
Headline
such a person
sponsors
otherwise.
Bamboo,
So let's take it
Waterway,
back.
and
So
Lotto
when our
Star.
parents were matchmaking, what was the
This is
intent?
Smooth 98.
Very correct. So you're listening to Smooth 98.1, and I have a chuckle and a smile on my face because there was a behind the scene conversation, which you can catch on YouTube. It is youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Again, youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. We have about 8 more minutes to wrap up this conversation. I wish we had more time. I always wish we had more time. But my guest is Loretta Olubunmi-Amosu, and we're talking about trying to conceive journey. I hope that you have learned at least one thing. It will be my joy, and you can pass it on to someone so that some of the pain and unnecessary pressure we heap on people, how we project our own expectations on people, will not be the same anymore. You know how we're all screaming about mental health. There are times you're doing something to even further, should I say, desecrate somebody's mental health, and you're not aware of it. It's just you out of the goodness of your heart. So please just try to be considerate, and sometimes we just need to put it in caps. Mind your business. That's the best summary of it sometimes. Just mind your business. I'll quickly start with this message from Wilson, and then we go back to the conversation. He said, I think this issue of infertility has been wrongly managed over the years, with the woman always at the receiving end, passing through some unpleasant conditions repeatedly, which ought not to be. A good way to manage infertility is to go for the root cause because of it in the first place. It could be the man with issue, maybe he's impotent or something. Whether it is the man or the woman with the issues, it could be managed the right way. At the end of the day, I think adoption can be called to the rescue. The fact is, marriage is not the ultimate in life, and having children in marriage is not the prime. That is not to rule out the fact that marriage is beautiful and that children bring happiness and fulfillment in marriage. It has to do with misplaced priority. The first essence of marriage is companionship founded strictly on love. Every other thing is secondary. If marriage is the ultimate in is if children is the ultimate in marriage, then why then do we have so many frustrated and miserable marriages as around, as well as cases of divorces in court, even though they have biological children? And if children are the prime in marriage, why do we have so many parents frustrated by their own biological children? That is actually food for thought.
Yes.
Well, he says, thank you and have a great day. It's quite lengthy. I had to cut out some part. Let me see this one again. Please, do you have any good fertility home for, well, we might not be able to recommend that. You didn't put your name though. We might not be able to give you a public recommendation of a fertility home for IVF, but I think if you search online, you might be able to um, see them. And one of the other reasons we'll not recommend any is once somebody recommends one to you, chances are that you go in there expecting the 100% success the first time.
Exactly.
And then if
Research shows that most of the first attempts are always negative.
I wonder why.
So, because they're still trying to understand the body of the woman,
Mm.
they're trying to see what the issues were. Like in my case or in Oma's case, that was when they started to query endometriosis. It was queried, but it wasn't confirmed until they realized that she wasn't responding like she should have, and then it became a fact. So sometimes they have to understand your body. They have to see how you respond to some of the hormonal medications that are given to you before they know how to proceed. And then it leaves a sour taste in your mouth, and you're like, oh, they're fraudulent. They're after money, you know. But I'd like to throw a question at Wilson, for instance. Wilson in particular. So he's talking about marriage being based on companionship. And we're trying to understand why some of these baby factory homes are situated in the East. Do you get the link? So I'm not trying to throw shade at any tribe or anything, but let's just go back to the days when our parents used to help us arrange marriage and all of that. Were they arranging marriage solely for companionship, or sometimes because they knew that they had to preserve a lineage and have children and continue certain things? So whilst we're very educated now and we're opening up to a lot of the things that happen in the Western world, there's a lot of African heritage and a lot of things that are traditional that still hold water here. It's if you want to go down research and try and understand what is going on, most of these baby factory homes, it's because they're trying to answer to the need. It's not the marriage, it's not the love that is keeping these marriages, it's the need for a child that is keeping the marriage. And where that need is not being met, they have to resort to other means. So ideally, yes, it should be for companionship, but we're still Africans. Let's not take that away.
And it's actually sad because from what you're saying, as long as we have the tradition and the culture and the unnecessary pressure on the woman, it looks like those baby homes are not going away anytime soon.
Exactly.
Because demand exists or supply. Once there is supply, or rather, once there is demand, there always
supply. Exactly.
That's sad, really sad. And I think that's another reason why we should again talk about cryptic pregnancy next week. But gradually bringing it to an end now, what would be your advice, recommendation to someone who's listening? First, to the one who's trying to conceive.
Thankfully, we have a lot of resources online. There's a good side to that. There's also the
Google
bad
can
side.
tell you anything.
Oh my goodness. During the cryptic pregnancy journey, I saw all sorts online that helped to fuel my hallucination that I was pregnant. But at the same time, if you want to be true to yourself and stick to the credible sites or the credible blogs, you would know that some of the things that you're saying should not hold water. So there's a lot of information out there. Even if you don't want to see a doctor, or you could see a therapist. You could see a therapist. It helps sometimes if you can afford it, and just try and talk to someone. Sometimes we don't get the information we want because we're secretive about some of these things. We're so guarded, we don't know that there are people who have walked the path, or even if we know, we're just a bit hesitant to go to them because you don't want your gist flying around. But really, what's the worst that can happen? You don't have a child, gist is already flying around. So you have to be careful with the kind of people that you go to, though. But if you speak up, you most likely will find the kind of help that you need.
As you give your recommendations and advice, what would you say to the men out there?
Please be more open. Not every man is like a kid in a seed. Please be more open. I've heard of stories where the women have approached their husbands and they're like, okay, we've been married for so and so years. Let's see a doctor. And the man is like, for what? I'm okay. I know that I'm okay. In some of the cases, maybe they have a child from a previous affair or from a previous marriage, and they don't understand that just as there's something called secondary infertility in the women, there's also something called secondary infertility in the men. The fact that you impregnated someone when you were in the university doesn't mean that you're still fertile, you're still okay. So just please be more open-minded. Don't push all of the pressure on the woman. It's just not fair. It's not fair. And there's a lot of intervention. I mean, for everything that a woman has to do, or rather for whatever a man has to do, the woman has to do like times 5. So if it's this one thing that is required, go get tested or something. Please be more open. Understand that you both are in the journey, and if there's really love, like Wilson said, you would do it.
And to family, friends, well wishers, what would you say to them?
Let the Lord use you.
Don't use yourself.
Just tone down on some of those comments a bit, please.
Yeah. Don't dream dreams. Don't see prophecies. The truth is, prophecies are meant to be a confirmation. So don't see prophecy for someone else that is not, I don't know.
It's okay to see. It's in the delivery. We also have to understand that prophecies are also meant to be edifying, exhorting and giving comfort for the other person. And sometimes when we see things that are not so palatable, who says that you have to go speak it out and bug this person's mind? Why not pray about it, stand in the gap or something?
Thank you very much. And remember that very cogent one. Most times, just mind your business. When you're praying for, it's okay for you to intercede for them if you're the one that can stand strong for them. If you wish something for them, why not pray for them? When your answers or when your prayers get answered, you will see it. Sometimes you don't need to just open your mouth and say, just mind your business sometimes, because you don't even know what is on that person's mind and the efforts that they are already making. Sometimes it looks like, oh, you're not even trying, but they have been trying so much. So thank you so much. Let me see if I can quickly take this one. All right. Here is Joel Ayedba Blessing, listening from Agboyi, Lagos. Says, just want to share experience a little. I went through all of this as well in my first year of marriage. That was 2016. People started counting down for us. D-test upon test, and as well went through the transvaginal ultrasound exam. But thank God 2017 was a miracle. My auntie is going through this for 8 years now and no child. I don't know how to advise her.
Has your auntie seen a medical doctor yet? Has she seen an OBGYN? Do we know what the cause of the infertility could be? I mean, that's where you always have to start from. You don't just jump into advice without understanding what it is that is happening. And I can say categorically that I know of people who have said no to seeking the doctor's advice because they have such strong faith. And I pray that their faith is rewarded. But they would also need to understand that the doctors are a gift.
Yeah.
From God. So
Answers
just go
can
seek
come.
help.
Thank you so much. We're out of time, but you can check out and maybe ask more questions on Instagram. I'm sure she will be open to answering your questions. Go look for her on Instagram at Salty Pearl. That's SALTYPERLE. I'm correct, right?
Yes, you are.
So you can send her a message in her DM and maybe she will be open. And of course, you can go look for her book, the one that took me through different kind of emotions, from the anger to the sadness to
we still need to talk about the anger.
and to the joy when Oma had twins. It was beautiful. Yeah. So Oma Seed is the title of the book with this really beautiful cover, a shade of blue that I like so much. So you can search that and get a copy for yourself. Thank you again for being my guest and your time this morning.
Thank you.
You can catch it on YouTube. We'll save the video for you. It is youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. You listen to the news at 11:55 and I'll be back to play you more soul songs here on Strictly Soul on Smooth 98.1.
Is it? This is a woman's world. Let's talk about
Thank you.
the woman.
Women make up more than half of the world's population and potential.
Every woman has a story to tell.
When I was
And the funny thing is, one of the reasons I feel comfortable and decided to come to radio is they don't get to see my face much. I don't have to glam up and all of that. So that's why it's comfortable. You can even turn off the lights and imagine you're talking to anyone and you're good.
For some reason, I feel more comfortable relating with some of the audience. I don't know why, but there's something about radio that's still giving me someday.
Maybe we need to get down to the root cause of it. Someone is asking for your phone number. I think I'll give Instagram instead. The person who asked for, or which one, if you're comfortable with it.
I need to know.